Powered by Riverside.
Hello and welcome back to Mindful Minutes. I'm your host, Tanesar Poddar. This is the episode 3 in our Q2 theme, AI in 2026. If you have been following the last 2 episodes, you will already know this isn't about tools, this isn't about automation. This is about a fundamental shift in who controls decisions. Let's quickly reconnect the dots. In episode 1 of this series, we spoke about the shadow buyer, where AI does the research before human even shows up, and algorithm economy, where visibility is controlled by systems, not just strategy. In episode 2, we built on that and we said the 6-second decision engine is where decision direction is set almost instantly, and the AI buyer committee, where decisions are made by a hybrid of human and machines. So, if you haven't heard those yet, I strongly recommend you to pause this episode and go back, because what we are about to discuss today depends on that foundation. Today's question is not about how marketing is changing. The question is, what does leadership look like when you don't control the buyer journey anymore? And that's where fractional CMOs enter the conversation. Part 1 of our episode, we're talking about the old role model, which is dead. Even if no one is ready to say it out loud, you're going to say this. It's uncomfortable, but it's the truth. The traditional CMO role, full-time or fractional, was built on 3 assumptions. You can influence awareness, you can guide the business journey or the buyer journey, and third, you can measure and optimize conversion points. But based on what we've already discussed in episode 1 and 2, all these 3 assumptions are probably broken. We're going to reconnect this clearly again. The shadow buyer is doing research before you even show up. The 6-second decision engine is shaping direction before you even engage. And you're entering a journey that is already influenced, accelerated, and partially decided. Which means you're no longer guiding the journey. You're entering a journey that's already in motion. That's the brutal truth. If you're still running campaigns, optimizing funnels, measuring conversions, without addressing this pre-journey influencer layer, you're probably optimizing outcomes you don't control. I think the role of CMO is not just evolving, it's actually being redefined. That's the part 1. Part 2, what we're talking about is we're going to take our campaign managers to decision architects. So what replaces this old model? Let me reintroduce this or introduce a new lens. The lens is the fractional CMO as a decision architect. Earlier, marketing was about creating demand, generating leads, driving engagement. But now, designing the environment in which decisions are made. What does this actually mean? Then, it means your role shifts from probably how do I get attention to how do I shape the inputs that influence decisions before attention even happens. We are probably no longer designing campaigns because of this. We are now changing or moving towards a shift wherein we are required to design decision ecosystems. This is where the third layer comes in. The third layer is of a modern growth design. Let's try to make this practical without being a lot more tactical here. A modern fractional CMO in an AI buyer economy operates across 3 layers. Layer 1 is the pre-decision influence or the invisible layer here. This is where most organizations are blind. This also includes AI recommendations, search summaries, peer-driven insights, aggregated content. This layer is still evolving, which is why I would say it's still an invisible layer. We discussed this layer in detail in the episode 1. Bottom line being, if you're not influencing this layer, you're not part of the decision. The second layer is the decision compression layer or the speed layer, where shortlists are validated, comparisons are confirmed, and confidence is reinforced, which is where we talked about the 6-second decision engine and the AI buyer committee. By the time you engage, the buyer is not exploring, they are confirming. These are the two layers. The third layer is the post-decision justification layer or the narrative layer. This is probably new and most often ignored because often after the decision is made, buyers need internal validation, stakeholder alignment, and justification across narratives. I believe this is where our content, messaging, and sales alignment still matter deeply, but not to convince, to validate what has already been decided. I think layer 3 is where marketing no longer drives decisions, it legitimizes them. Overall, I think what can a fractional CMO do differently here is we have to think about whether they have an advantage or whether they still are managing the entire ecosystem. I think fractional CMOs have a unique advantage here. Think in systems or not just campaigns. Campaigns are monumentally. Systems are persistent. So we need to design content ecosystems, signal architectures, and authority layers that continuously influence AI and buyer perception. Instead of asking what campaign should we run, let's start by asking what system shape, how are we perceived. This is what a fractional CMO can bring in. Let's build for AI interpretation, not just human consumption, which means your content should be structured, be contextual, be comparable, because AI doesn't read like human. Text compares and summarizes, which means if AI cannot interpret you clearly, it cannot recommend you confidently. That's exactly where strategically a fractional CMO can lay an anchor. Third, go from conversions to influence, which is redefining the metrics. Instead of focusing on traditional metrics like CDR, leads, conversions, let's move into a new reality where we look at influence metrics. For example, AI visibility, recommendation rate, or inclusion in recommendations, and share of voice or share of algorithmic voice. What gets measured gets optimized. But most teams are measuring it the wrong way, which is why we have to look at this more deeply. Along with this, sales has to align with pre-decided buyers. Now, sales team must adapt to faster conversations, more informed buyers, and a low patience for discovery, which means they have to change their usual stance from pitching to less pitching, validation to more validation, and clarity to more clarity. Sales is no longer about persuasion now. It's more about alignment. Of course, it's always been about alignment, but now it's more about alignment. Let's try to build this as an orchestra. It's not just about execution of the orchestra. Everybody syncing up to be into a one single unit is what makes this into a bigger shift. A fractional CMO here, his role is not to just run ads, manage vendors, and execute tactics. It's to build this orchestra and to see how all elements influence the buyer ecosystem. I believe execution creates activity, orchestration creates outcomes. Now, Since we are on the topic of fractional CMOs, what is the strategic advantage of a fractional CMO? If we go deeper, that's where an opportunity actually lies. In a traditional setup, full-time CMOs are often embedded in execution. Agencies are focused on deliverables, teams are siloed. But a fractional CMO operates above all of this. In an AI buyer economy, the problem is no longer how do we do marketing or better marketing. Problem is how do we align everything that influence a decision. Fractional CMO can bring in product positioning, content structure, sales messaging, customer proof, data signals as a value, not just in time, but about a perspective that goes across the entire decision system. Here's a hard reality which probably most founders might ignore. Most founders are invested in having more tools, hiring more marketers, or running more campaigns, but they won't address why they're not being recommended in the first place. They as in their brand. So we need not lose because our marketing is weak. We usually lose because we are absent where decisions are shaped. All in all, let's invoke all these three layers. Let's bring everything together because that's where the real clarity emerges. Shadow buyer, who's doing the research before the human shows up. Algorithm economy, which is deciding what gets seen, which means you're not the first touch point anymore. 6-second decision engine that is compressing decision direction. AI buyer committee that is expanding decision complexity, because of which decisions are faster and less controllable. But fractional CMOs now have to be invested into because there's a shift in leadership that is required. They are becoming, or they are required to become, decision architects. And they are definitely invested in making sure that your growth is designed across pre-decision, decision, and post-decision layers. We don't control the journey, but that doesn't mean we cannot design the system around it. That's it about the AI series episode. Let me leave you with a question that might redefine how you look at your entire GTM strategy for now. If your buyer journey is no longer yours to control, then what exactly are you optimizing? I would love to hear your thoughts. In 2026, visibility is decided before discovery, decisions are shaped before engagement, and influence happens before interaction. So maybe the goal isn't to win the funnel. Maybe the goal is to design the reality in which funnel even exists. If this sounds uncomfortable, I think it's good, because that's where strategy begins. Last but not the least, if you haven't yet gone back, please listen to the episode 1, episode 2, because all these three together are not just series, they are a rewrite of how marketing is actually working. This is Mindful Minutes and Tanay Sarpotdar. In the AI buyer economy, the brands that win are not the loudest. They are the ones that are already chosen before the conversation begins.